How do we deal with the fact that the story of Pinchas seems to glorify zealotry and even violent zealotry in the name of God? In last week's Parsha, Pinchas took a spear, killed 2 people involved in a sin, sexual sin. And in this week's Parsha, God praises Pinchas. God says he returned my anger, he was jealous on my behalf, and therefore I will give him my blessing, my covenant of peace. It seems like he did exactly what he should have done. But that is not what we would like to embrace, an idea of somebody acting violently in the name of God, that somehow that's endorsed. And here we actually find 2 answers to this, one from the rabbis and one from the verse. From the verse, let's note that it says, I am giving him my covenant of peace, not of violence. It might be that a violent act was necessary at the time, something I think that we struggle with. Maybe from the Torah not. Moshe uses violence after the Egel. That's still a problem. But what the Torah is saying is, even if that was warranted, which we have a challenge with, it is not the way a person lives a life defending God, living a godly life. That is the covenant of peace. There is no covenant of zealotry, no covenant of violence. It's a covenant of peace. Similarly, the rabbis say that to act in a zealous way is to act outside the law. There is no way the law can endorse it. If somebody said, Rabbi, should I take up a spear? The answer would be no, it's murder. And if Pinchas, as he was about to use the spear, Zimri turned around and killed him, Zimri would be in his rights. Pinchas was actually, at that moment, doing an act of murder, attempting to do an act of murder. From a legal perspective, it's only afterwards that we can say some good came out of it. So God is telling him the way is the way of peace. And we see this later in his life that we see in the Nevi'im, where the Transjordan, the tribes, were made an altar. The people thought that they were breaking away, and they were ready to go to war. But first they sent Pinchas to broker a peace. It's the young warrior turning into the older diplomat. And it was because of Pinchas that violence and war were averted, and that they actually found a peace and reconciliation. And there's some in the Gemara that says it was only at that moment, when he lived up to the idea of the covenant of peace, did he become a Kohen. So God is telling us, yes, that violent act took place, but don't laud zealotry and violence. To have a covenant with God, it has to be a covenant of peace. Shabbat Shalom.